Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are going to buy a new car, this video is going to be pretty useful because we are going to buy this baby today. So let me show you what are the things that you have to see if you are going to buy a new car. Also, if it is a second-hand vehicle like this, there should be a lot of things that is going to be very important. Some cars are hacked, some cars had major accidents. So let me show you how to identify a bad car from a good car. So like anybody, you will be browsing through the net and you will be trying to identify details of vehicles, and you will be trying to identify what are the good things and bad things about particular vehicle models when you're going to buy a second hand car. But once you come across a model and once you select your options and once you visit some of these cars to see them and buy them, there are some important things to be identified, and that is going to be more useful than not. So let me show you. Main things in concern are engine with engine repairs and vehicle body without a damage or major accidents. So if you're going to buy a second hand vehicle, there are certainly going to be several accidents, particularly smaller scale ones that may have caused some buffer damage or maybe scratches like that. So that sort of thing is not going to be a big problem because one paint coat and a small minor repair will be fine. So the most important thing at this point is to identify a vehicle without major damage. So let me show you how to identify major damages in your vehicle before you are going to a proper mechanic for a proper assessment. So you will be able to see many cars before finding out a proper car that you are going to refer to your mechanic. So one important thing is to observe as a general glance and try to identify whether all components, especially these hood railings and components that cover the vehicle, especially the plastic parts, whether all of these are intact or not. If vehicle has made a major accident, most of the time these plastic parts are either damaged or they are missing from the vehicle because it is very difficult to find them in second hand market stores. So then you have to see whether there's evidence of major accidents and mainly observe whether these paints are original or not. If the paint is not original or if there's evidence of these major struts being removed, there's a high chance that this vehicle is not a good one. But here in this case, the original paint is still there and there are no signs of repainting and there are no signs of forced removing of the nuts or anything like that, and there are no signs of a major accident. And make sure you put your head in and try to identify any dents or any signs of a damage inside, especially these areas will be involved in a major accident. And make sure these plastic parts all are there. If they are there, it is most likely a good vehicle. Also, see the engine compartment, whether there is rust, whether there are oil leaks, and whether there's anything being replaced like this. This is a gel mount here, whether this is replaced or not. And look at the battery, whether there are leaks of the acid and whether the battery seems to be alright. And good vehicles will have original stickering and the wiring will be all right. And some cars have plastic parts like this, and underneath this there's a large number of fuses of the electric system of the car, and some of these cars have parts like this that will stop mouse entering into the vehicle. And once you do that, there's one important thing to identify whether the nozzles of the uh, windscreen cleaners are clean or not, whether they are there or whether they are replaced. And then it is time to close the engine compartment. Once you do that, lift this and drop it down, and if you have time, inspect the rubber whether it is replaced or not. Then you can enter the dicky compartment. So let's open the dicky. Oh, by the first looks, it looks very nice, but it's always very important to remove these floor mats and carpets and see underneath. So let me remove them for you. So I have removed the carpet on the floor, so it will be easy for me to identify any problem inside the rear compartment. So I will be particularly looking at evidence of a major crash, but it doesn't seem so because these curves are perfectly fine. And when you see more and more vehicles, you will also see that better vehicles has these kind of nice curves in their back. So let me show you. So the tools are there in the toolbox, and the spare wheel is still there, and there's some soil in the spare wheel, so this had been used and it should be normal for a vehicle 10 years old. And make sure that you remove the strut and observe the bottom of the pit. Take it out, take the spare wheel out, and let's observe. So it seems fine, no rust underneath, and some of these vehicles gather fluid, water, when they wash the vehicle, like in this case. See, it's a normal thing inside Toyota Allions and Premio, especially when they service the vehicle. Some water seep in from these small holes and stay here. So in that case, you have to remove these small rubber parts and take the fluid out. But make sure there is no rust underneath, and see the other side as well. So this dicky compartment seems to be fine, and it looks a nice vehicle from exterior. So it's the time to move in and see. So let's open. Once you open, don't jump inside, stay outside and observe from outside. So it looks to be a well-maintained vehicle. So the steering wheel is nice, the seats are nice, and make sure whether there is any evidence of any loose areas on the dashboard, which is not there. Open the glove box, and it's opening nicely. And make sure that all parts are cleanly opening, because a bad owner will not maintain a good interior. A good interior is always indicative of a good, well-maintained car. People can change the outside, but it's not easy to maintain the inside unless you are very careful. So this car looks to be fine, and like I'm doing, you can also look everything inside, and after you have a good look from the inside and outside, turn on the vehicle. So once you turn on, you will feel the air conditioning and the level of air conditioning in this vehicle, and particularly in this Toyota model, which is a Toyota Allion, it is important to identify any problem with air conditioning, because it is so common, especially in these temperate countries. These air conditions tend to fail, and then if you are very interested, you can even operate it and try to identify whether all buttons are working. If all are working, that's fine. And make sure that you don't miss most important features like auto folding mirrors, whether mirrors are folding fine, and whether signals are working. They do. And whether seat belt marks are fine, and whether the odometer is showing the proper values advertised. And there are some other buttons that you can press. So this car has done 84,800 kilometers on the clock. And make sure all these interior parts are working before going into a test ride. Alright, everything seems to be fine. Let's move to the back. So there's a child seat, so make sure that child seat mounts are also there. So it seems to be fine. The seat is perfectly in place. Let's go from the other side. Alright, so when you come here, make sure all these parts are working fine. Especially in older vehicles, these windows can get stuck sometimes. Center console is fine. So it seems to be alright. One final thing before going on a test ride. Open the car boot and both fuel cap as well as the car boot from the front seat as well, because sometimes those mechanisms may not be working fine. Alright, everything seems to be fine. So once you do all these, then it's the time to go for a test drive. So let's start it up. Engine start is smooth, and we'll move on to the drive straight away. We'll see how it goes. Well, the vehicle seems to be moving fine, and I particularly chose this rough road because we wanted to check whether the vehicle is functioning well, and particularly the suspension system of the vehicle. So Toyotas are very good with their noise reduction and suspension, and this rough road seems to be well handled by the vehicle, and I don't see much impact, and particularly I don't feel the road damage that is very obvious to a naked eye. So I will be accelerating now, so I want to see whether the pickup is good. Yes, the pickup is good as well as the brakes, and the vehicle seems to be handling the road very well. So the other thing that we want to do is take an acute angle, acute turn, and check the CV joints of the vehicle. So I will be taking a turn to the left side first, a full turn, which seems to be well handled by the vehicle. Also, there is no play of the steering wheel. Steering wheel play is something that is important to check, because if the steering rack is worn off, there will be a play in the steering wheel. So let's check the pickup of the vehicle. 0, to 16, 3 seconds is something very good, and that is very good when it comes to a second-hand vehicle. So the pickup and the handling seems to be well, and I do not feel any misfiring, and there's no hiccups of the vehicle. So those are very important things. If you have any of those issues, don't even think about buying a vehicle, because you are buying a second-hand vehicle. You can go for other vehicles, or at least a properly repaired vehicle, rather than a vehicle that you have to do repairs. Never ever choose a vehicle that you have to do even minor repairs. All right, so always make sure that you choose a smaller road, because that will be the best indication of a good vehicle. It will be very easy to judge a vehicle in a smaller road and when there is road damage, because when you drive the vehicles in a highway or maybe a better road, you will never be able to feel whether the suspension system of the vehicle is good, whether CV joints are good. All that can only be appreciated in a smaller road. So make sure, if you're buying a second-hand vehicle, make sure that you drive at least in a smaller road for 5 to 10 minutes. So that will give you a best indication. So the best way is to drive one way for 5 minutes and choose another 5 minutes on the way back. Particularly check the reverse function of the vehicle and make sure that all what you need is good. Also, more importantly, make sure the feeling of the vehicle, the handling of the vehicle, and whether you feel comfortable driving the vehicle, and is this what you want. If you feel that this vehicle is not the vehicle that you want, and that you searched this model and you have read good reviews, but when you get into the vehicle you find it is difficult or you find it uncomfortable, then it is not your vehicle. There's always a vehicle for you. Make sure that you move there and make sure that you want to buy that vehicle.